Tonight on 205 Live, we qualify the final two for the Fatal 4-Way.
And Dragunov prepares for his match with the Prince, but is confronted by a king. Gentlemen, raise your beverages. It is an NXT party. We are good now.
That was au natural.
Yes, that was naked.
Support, no DQ.
Welcome everybody to the NXT party for episode number 79 of NXT UK. I'm your host, the Rated R reviewer, Stefan Osborne, joined as always by the General, Jerry Slaughter.
Good morning, wrestling fans.
Our special guest this morning, we've got Owen Finch.
The Birdman of Boston.
How's it going?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm excited to review 205 Live, the first time ever in the United Kingdom, so really excited about it. We might get 205 Live twice this week. It might be a first, so I'm excited about that. Or maybe the one in the U.S. will get canceled. So.
Yeah, this was nuts. If you can't tell by the fact that we've still got the Union Jack up here, we are talking about NXT UK, plus NXT party, we introduced it as such. Anyway, the reason we call this 205 Live this week is because two of the three matches that we get are the qualifying matches for the Fatal 4-Way for the Cruiserweight Championship at Worlds Collide.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first match and the main event.
Yes.
The only other match that we get is a little bit of build-up for Ilya Dragunov, who is going to be facing Finn Balor at Worlds Collide.
Yes.
He needs some momentum, so he is going to face a jobber and beat him. In this case, the jobber is smaller than Ilya. Of all the participants this week, Ilya Dragunov might be the biggest guy. And we're fairly sure he's at least close to 205, if not a cruiserweight himself.
Yes.
So, yeah, this was an episode of Cruiserweights, which is fine, but
even the commentary team was 205 Live.
The order of this show was slightly off. Devlin should have been in the main event, and whoever the fuck was in the main event, in this case it was Travis Banks and the Brian Kendrick, should have opened the show. What we got was Ligero versus Jordan Devlin as the first match. It wasn't the first segment, though.
No.
We start the show with Sid Scala and Johnny Saint in the ring. They've got a pedestal, and they've got something under the pedestal. And then Imperium come out.
Or nice red cloth. There's a really nice red cloth.
And they come to the ring, and I don't remember who talks first. Does it really matter?
Oh, it was Sid Scala.
Yeah. Essentially, somebody finally listened to us and probably tons of other people, and they have renamed the the WWE United Kingdom Championship to the NXT UK Championship.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with a new title belt that looks much like this one, except the center plate has got the NXT logo going up and down.
I think it looks nicer. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the fact that that crummy W logo is off of it.
I think part of it is the fact that we were right. Anyway.
Yeah. So great satisfaction in that.
This gives Imperium an opportunity to speak.
Yes.
And they take this opportunity. Walter is glad that the title that was polluted by both Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne has been replaced with this new title that now he holds for the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the inaugural champion.
Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially. And somebody says disrespecting Imperium means disrespecting the ring. And Undisputed Era thinks that this is a job, but to Imperium, this is life, man. And yeah, don't disrespect the ring.
Nope.
So, any notes here, Owen?
I really liked the segment. You know, I really liked how passionate Walter was when he was speaking about Undisputed Era. And I was kind of disappointed because I was hoping we were going to finally get an unveiling of a mid-card championship in NXT UK. But I like the new title. I think it looks nicer. I feel like it looks like it's like a legit title. Well, the other one did, but I feel like this one just looks nicer.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me question whether or not he had this title, because NXT had aired the day before this, so I wondered if he had this title at NXT since he was on it this week. Or if he had the other title. But I would have to go back and watch it.
That's a good point.
I love, you know, when he said, I don't want to, I'm sick and tired of people disrespecting us, and he healed it up by just tipping over the table that had the title on it originally, so I thought that was great. And, yeah, this is when I noticed who Aiden English was on commentary, because I heard his voice, and last week, Aiden English and Tom Phillips weren't on 205 Live, so I was kind of wondering, I knew Tom Phillips because he was doing these tapings, but I was wondering where was Aiden English, and this explained it, because he was doing these tapings as well.
Well, they were working on 205 Live UK.
But I guess Nigel's going to be not back till March, because obviously this is all one big show, so Nigel wasn't going to be there for these tapings. I don't know what he was doing, but I enjoyed the segment. I thought it was awesome.
He's probably chilling in America because he's got Worlds Collide coming up this weekend, and then, as Jerry reminded me, he's got TakeOver coming up in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So why fly back and forth? Fuck that. We'll just hang out here and fucking, because in England there's not a lot of going south to avoid the winter temperatures.
No.
In America, he's kind of stationed down in Florida, where they don't really deal with snow and shit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it was between spending my end of January and February in Britain versus spending my end of January and February in Miami or Orlando,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's obvious. So, yeah, I cut him some slack because I dig Aiden English. Fuck, why not?
Yeah, I like him a lot.
We're going to go into our first match here. Ligero versus Jordan Devlin. This has stakes here because this is going to put at least one person from NXT UK in either Ligero or Jordan Devlin, and it's going to take either Travis Banks from NXT UK or, for some reason, the Brian Kendrick from 205 Live will be representing NXT UK at Worlds Collide in the Fatal 4-Way. That's bullshit all across the board.
Mm-hmm.
All across the board. But this has got implications because for, all practical purposes, the NXT Cruiserweight Championship is a mid-card title now on NXT, and it can be moved to NXT UK, and we can finally have it's not the European Championship that we want, but at least it's something.
But there's enough cruiserweights in NXT UK and enough people coming through WXW in progress to make it a pretty fruitful title. So
I usually have a lot of things that I expect out of a match with Ligero, which makes me not like the match as much because it's all the same shit. But this match was fun. It should have been the main event.
Yes.
And I've got several notes of stuff that, again, I've never seen before. But before I do, Owen, what did you think about the opening match here?
I loved it. I really liked the continuity they were telling, how they've wrestled 5 times, and Jordan Devlin's undefeated against Ligero, and so it made Jordan Devlin take Ligero way too lightly, so he was just kind of bullying him in the beginning portions of the match, which I liked. And he even yanked at his mask, which I know you like that because you're not a fan of the horn.
He pulled on the horn.
It caused Ligero to snap, and I thought it was a really enjoyable back and forth match. I love that they were chanting for Tyler Bate in the match, which was funny. So that makes me question if they're going to continue that feud where Devlin's just sick of the chants, but we'll see. I think it was obvious, though, that Devlin was going to win this match. I feel like he was the right choice because I think a lot of Devlin's great, but I feel like he's not seen enough because not enough like of the NXT audience now that it's on USA sees UK. So I think at Worlds Collide, if he's in the match, it will really get him noticed. It's probably the biggest stage he's going to wrestle in since he's joined WWE. So I was all fine with that.
Jerry.
You and I discussed this on the last show that we did when this match was introduced. We really don't like the idea of Devlin being in this match at all if he's not going to win it. But now I'm thinking more on your lines of the way of thinking. Maybe that Cruiserweight title can come over to NXT UK and be like the mid-card belt, which would be wonderful. But I still don't see Angel Garza dropping it this soon. So, but this match in general, I really enjoyed. One, because Ligero was wearing pants. Two, the fact that the action didn't really stop. There was really no slow points in this match. And I just love the history between the two. The fact that they know each other so well that they're just blocking move after move. George was the classics of Jordan Devlin. We got to see those naturally. So, especially the Uranagi and the moonsault. That just looked absolutely perfect. Oh, usually does with Ligero and Devlin.
So, Owen mentioned at the beginning where Devlin grabs Ligero's horn and Ligero snaps, and I think he smacks him and he starts beating him up, and the ref separates him just long enough to call for the bell, and I'm like, you're not going to let Jordan Devlin take his jacket off? He didn't get to take his jacket off until he finally came back and got a little bit of offense, and then finally took it off and threw it away. And he had some words about it, but I just, Ligero and Devlin in this instance are both fighting for an opportunity at a championship, which they really haven't had a lot of in NXT UK because there is no mid-card title. And they mentioned it on commentary what these guys are willing to do to get that spot, and I'm like, yeah, so what the fuck have they been doing for the last year plus? Kind of what has it all been about? Until we finally have a mid-card title on NXT UK, unless you are in the main event and you get one person every month and a half to 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, we only get 2 takeovers for UK a year when you don't have a Worlds Collide where you can interact with others. And this is the first Worlds Collide that's kind of being treated like a takeover or a pay-per-view. So it's almost ridiculous, but it puts some added flavor to the match. It means something. Let's see, my notes here, and Jerry mentioned it, all of the trading of reversals. Ligero tries to do that handstand off the apron where, catches him with the head scissors, but Devlin reverses, throws the handstand up, and then super kicks him in the face. Knocks him off the apron. But he goes for that slingshot cutter early on, but Ligero dodges it by slingshotting himself onto the apron and then back in for a slingshot stunner. And only gets a near fall. He also counters the Devlin side into a tornado DDT that was just brilliant looking. Then picks him up and hits a pump. I call it a pump handle inverted Michinoku driver. Pump handle slam, and then he turns it around and puts him down in a face buster that was a little off kilt. Like it wasn't lined up with him, but it was essentially an inverted Michinoku driver. Anyway, he goes up top though for a splash, and he only gets a near fall. And then he goes for that C4L, and Devlin rolls under it, underneath the ropes, gets up on the apron. Ligero runs in and he headbutts him, and then finally hits that slingshot cutter, but only gets a near fall. But right off of that, stands up, picks up Ligero, and we thought he was going to start kicking him in the face like he does to set up for the Devlin side, but nope, right into the Devlin side, 1, 2, 3.
No time for that. None.
He wins. He moves on. And I hope to God either he wins or somebody else from NXT UK wins. If that be Brian Kendrick and he brings it over somehow. even though he's technically 205. I don't know. We'll get into that when the main event comes around.
I also noticed when Devlin hits he hits the standard Spanish fly. I also noticed they kind of messed that up a little bit because when he flipped, I feel like there was some miscommunication with.
He looked like he was doing a frog splash going upside down.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't write out the Spanish fly. I also didn't write down Devlin's Greatest Hits Volume 1. Shit that we always see. Like,
yeah.
I mean, just assume that you saw it. Radzy's backstage interviewing Kaylee Ray. She's got a match in the pre-show of Worlds Collide against Mia Yim, and she says something about that. I really just generic. But she does say to Radzy, who wishes her good luck, she says, "I don't need your luck."
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty suave. Pretty suave. She leaves, and Imperium march up, and they kind of scold Radzy for interviewing her when he should be interviewing them. This feels kind of classic.
Yeah.
As far as heel interrupting promos go on NXT.
A heel interrupting a heel promo.
But they get interrupted by the South Wales subculture that's Mandrews and Flash Morgan Webster, the man with 3 names. And they say, how are they so dominant when they've never been the tag champions? And somehow that gets on their nerves.
Yeah.
Says the guys that were tag champs for a cup of coffee and are no longer the tag champs.
Oh, snap.
And equally had an opportunity to take the tag titles at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 and did not get the job done either.
Also, the guys they have the shortest NXT UK tag title reign in NXT UK history of I think it's 2 months.
Yep.
I almost said 2 weeks because it felt like 2 weeks.
Next week, we get Eddie Dennis, who they announce is going to be there to address the NXT UK universe or whatever.
I think they're going to be there to talk about Trent Seven, and that's probably where he's going to get injured at. So.
Do you mean quote unquote injured? Because I thought he's already injured. I think he's just there to be like, hey, I'm fucking injured, and this is the 3rd time.
He got injured during the taping for York, and that's it. And then he went to Evolve or Progress and dropped the title there because he couldn't defend it.
Right on. Okay, so I can't wait to see what happens there next week.
Oh yeah, so we're going to see Eddie Dennis get injured on television.
Meanwhile, go ahead.
It sucks. He's gonna get injured because he was finally getting his push. He went over Black, and I thought he was gonna finally get some momentum, but it sucks. And I want to say I do like the fact too that Mia Yim and Kaylee Ray are gonna finally have a match because there's some story there from the War Games build-up when Kaylee Ray screwed Mia Yim out of the ladder match. So I actually kind of like that they're going to do a match. I wish it was for the title, but I guess it's not going to be for the title.
No.
I wonder if we get a video package promo before the match during the show that actually lays out some of that history and builds up the match.
They're treating it almost like it's never happened before. So it's just odd.
Because Owen mentioning that is the first time I even
thought about it.
Nobody remembers that.
It
would be good of them to remind people.
That's what Owen does. That's why he's good to have here.
Well, meanwhile, NXT UK is rehashing or recycling NXT video promos. We get the same one of Finn Balor that we got last week, where he's talking about Ilya Dragunov and essentially tells him, when you take your shot, you better hit it. You get one shot.
Do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
So we talked about that last week. Let's move on to our second match of the evening. Josh Morrell, who finally gets to have a match because he got taken out by Eddie Dennis, who got taken out by his own shoulder.
Yeah.
He is facing Ilya Dragunov, and we all know what that means. That means Dragunov is gaining some momentum because he is facing the guy we just saw in the promo at Worlds Collide, him and Finn Balor. So this was a squash, but not as bad as, say, the one that we saw last night on NXT.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one that was.
Oh, that was Finn Balor versus Joaquin Wilde.
Yeah, so they both get squash matches, but in this case, I feel like this, what's his name? I don't even remember his name.
Josh Morrell.
This Josh guy, Mr. Josh, got a little bit of offense, or at least some countering there at the beginning, but then finally succumbed. He succumbed to a kick to the face.
Yeah, that kick to the face was just brutal.
There was just this little bit of chain wrestling, but then Ilya picks him up off of a waist lock and shoves him forward. As soon as he turns around, Ilya jumps in the air and straight karate kicks him in the face. Just in the face. That's my first note, but before I get to the rest of them, what were your thoughts on this match?
It had squash written all over it, and I didn't know what they were really trying to accomplish, because nobody really saw Josh Morrell as a threat. But, basically, the second we heard Dragunov's music start, you underlined Dragunov's name, and I'm over wonder how bad he's going to get beaten. Because the Finn Balor beating on Joaquin Wilde last night was just perfect. It was just brilliantly executed. No offense from Joaquin Wilde whatsoever, except for a miss. That was the story behind that match. It's the fact that he missed with one move. Finn Balor completely dominated the rest of the time. So, with Dragunov, Morrell got a little bit of offense in, but not enough to really phase Dragunov, because he's high off of 6 or 7 Red Bulls at this point.
I mean, he comes out and beats up the stage like the stage killed his father and he needs revenge. Owen, any thoughts? Cheers.
Yeah, just the second I saw Josh Morrell come out with his generic music and just, I felt, I knew he was getting squashed. I mean, obviously it made sense to do this because, Ilya Dragunov is facing Finn Balor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Josh Morrell got a little too much offense. I say that because he should have just completely squashed this guy, because Ilya Dragunov isn't just facing anyone on NXT. He is facing Finn Balor, who has main roster experience.
Mm-hmm.
No lie. As soon as this match, I guess the bell rang, I told Jerry, I was like, he should run in right now and torpedo Moscow him. They should have Josh be looking at the crowd and then turn around and catch a torpedo Moscow to the face.
Yeah.
And pull him into a 1-2-3 and it just be an insta finisher win. But knowing what I know now, the fact that this is only one of only 3 matches, I'm glad that it lasted a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I thought it made Ilya Dragunov look strong to face Finn, so that was good.
Yeah, it ends with Ilya doing the high knee in the corner, which was really sick looking and sounding. And then he comes right off with the 6-1 line, picks him up into a pump handle slam that he lands with one arm and just throws him away and down, which was badass looking. Mm-hmm. And then sets up for... I hate that long-ass setup for it. But now that I know it's a running headbutt instead of a running uppercut, I really appreciate the Torpedo Moscow now. Mm-hmm. And they did a great angle with the camera this time, because he catches him over the right or over the left shoulder.
Yep. And
so they finally got a camera angle that shows him looking like he headbutts him in the fucking temple. Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, Ilya Dragunov, who actually gets a microphone, and it's funny, because he's thinking what I'm thinking. He doesn't talk a lot, and he says he's a man of few words. And when he does speak, he chooses his words
very, 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 very.
He chooses his words, and he uses his words very, very, very carefully. And I'm like, okay, if you're a man of few words and you choose your words carefully, why'd you get the first word wrong and then you use the word very 3 times when you didn't need to? You only need one very. So this whole thing, to me, is fun and funny.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what they intended it to be.
No.
Anyway, he is going to say something about Finn Balor, but instead he gets interrupted by Gallus. And I love the music, so I'm going to allow it.
Yeah, they look like they're ready for a senior citizens cruise.
I'm used to just thinking Gallus heel. And so I hear the music and I'm like, oh, this motherfucker's going to get a beat down. I completely forget about their history.
Yeah.
As soon as I see Gallus and I see Mark like slowing down Wolfgang and Joe slowing down Wolfgang and Mark, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He helped them with the Imperium. And I guess Joe sends the tag team back, goes into the ring. He's got a mic already, and he's talking about, Wolfgang and Mark successfully defended their titles at Blackpool 2, but I came up short in the WWE UK Championship match.
And it's partly your fault.
Well, he says that's on him, but it's partly Ilya Dragunov's fault. He's like, I appreciate your help. Like, I love how heel, but like this is the weirdest form of heel. Respectful, but still somehow bad.
Yeah.
He is ridiculously respectful, but he calls himself the king. And I feel like if this was a king addressing an adversary that he's getting ready to go to war with, but that adversary has a previously engaged war to be had, he's like, good luck with that, so that I can see you when you're done.
Yep.
And I can fucking end you.
That's pretty much what that's pretty much what I got out of the whole thing too.
And it was so eloquently said, and I commend him, because usually when Joe speaks, I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. In this case, I'm up to speed. This was nice. I enjoyed this.
So
I enjoyed it as well.
Where do you see this match actually taking place? Like, probably like, are they going to build it towards the next UK takeover, or is it going to be televised?
It's really tough because you don't really know when they're going to do another one, because there's so few in between.
Mm-hmm.
If the next one's not till the summer, like it was with Cardiff, then they're going to definitely do it on TV. What I see happening at some point is I see Ilya Dragunov is going to accidentally screw Wolfgang and Mark Coffey out of the tag titles and help Imperium win. And I was kind of thinking about this. Maybe this is all just one well-developed plan by Imperium. They're having Ilya Dragunov like acting like he's not going to join just to screw with Gallus. But I feel like now that kind of really wouldn't make sense, since if he was going to join, he would have joined a long time ago.
And he wouldn't have taken the beating from Alexander Wolf that they had in that no disqualification match.
Yeah.
But I really like what I like about this segment is NXT and NXT UK do so well at just building to multiple things. They build into Worlds Collide with Joe Coffey saying you focus on Worlds Collide, and they'll also build in this future storyline. Like NXT is basically built into like 3 shows at once with UK, and then they built to 4 really. Dusty Rhodes Tag. They built Worlds Collide, and now they're building to Portland. And it's crazy that the main roster can't even build one show up.
No, they can't.
Well, I want to semi-quote Joe here, because I thought this was great. He said, at Worlds Collide, Ilya is representing NXT UK, but he's also representing Joe's Kingdom. And once he settles things with the Prince, he has things to settle with the Iron King.
And that was just a badass line.
And then he leaves. So he's like, I'm not going to beat you up now, because I don't get to represent even the tag team in Gallus. Even Mark Coffey and Wolfgang get to represent NXT UK at Worlds Collide, don't they?
No,
they don't have a match.
No, they don't. They don't have a match.
That's bullshit.
Which I'm surprised about, because Gallus has been in NXT UK since the first episode. Like they were literally the first match on the show. Like.
So anyway,
wasn't Joe Coffey versus Ashton Smith, or was it Joe Coffey and Mark Coffey versus somebody? I don't remember. It
was Joe Coffey versus Mark Andrews.
That's what I was about to say. Mark Andrews. Should have said it. Anyway, Marcel Bartel, Fabian Eichner, and Alexander Wolf are backstage, and you think I'm setting up for a joke. No, they're outside of Sid Scala and Johnny Saint's office, and they catch him. They always catch him coming out. Like, did they knock? I don't think they even knocked.
They just got the paper on the door that says, manager's office.
Anyway, they want a match with the South Wales subculture, and Johnny Saint and Sid Scala said that's not a bad idea, but Wolf is standing right there, and they're like, yeah, we know how this is going to go down. We know how you like to treat the rules, and instead of trying to borrow somebody from ringside, how about we just make this a 6-man tag? The 3 of them versus Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan Webster, and
A partner.
a partner of their choosing, a mystery opponent, a question mark, question mark, question mark.
3 question marks.
We are going to get this next week. Next week, we're also going to get another tag match. The Hunt is back, but also Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch are back. So we've got Jay Melrose and Mike Hitchman, and we've got the Brit and Bruisers.
Who do you think's going to be the mystery partner?
Since he just recently came back and they're starting to build him up again, I actually think it's going to be Dave Mastiff, which I think would be a nice option because I don't think they're going to go the Ilya Dragunov route because he's kind of with Gallus, so I don't really think it, or at least for the time being anyways. So I think it's going to be Dave Mastiff because I really, I mean, they could go Tyler Bate, but I feel like that would just kind of be an odd fit. I think it's going to be Dave Mastiff. Honestly.
I think Jerry agrees with you.
Yep, Mastiff just seems like the natural plug for it.
Well, when you see the shot of them interacting backstage alongside Radzi, the size difference is just unmistakable. Like Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews are tiny compared to
together they weigh pretty much Alexander Wolf.
See, even Fabian Eichner, who once competed in the cruiserweight division, but they said has now put on 20 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
I'm like, looks like more than 20 pounds, and it's not just muscle. He's a big. But Eichner is bigger than him, and Alexander Wolf, I think, is bigger than him. And they need somebody large. And Dave Mastiff makes sense, but I said, you know what? If they're smart, I would go with Ridge Holland.
That would give them a quick boost out of the beaten up local talents.
Yeah, that would, because we don't know if he's a face or a heel yet. Really, he's just been kind of having squash matches. So
and that would give him kind of like the mercenary type feel to him. It's like you need a tag team partner. He'll do it.
How much you got?
Pretty much. Do I get to carry my club?
That brings us to the main event, Travis Banks versus the Brian Kendrick. This is the final spot in the Fatal 4-Way for the Cruiserweight Championship at Worlds Collide. And again, Travis Banks is legitimately representing NXT UK, but how is the Brian Kendrick in this match? And why the fuck was this the main event? I've got a lot of notes. Don't get me wrong, but Devlin winning, I feel like, is a much bigger thing.
Yeah.
But whatever. Before I break down all, this is a lot of notes, honestly. Owen, what did you think about the main event?
I really liked it, but yeah, I don't really understand why it was the main event. I feel it definitely should have kicked off the show, but something I always like about watching the Brian Kendrick match is just how crafty he is, because he really works over an opponent in ways you wouldn't expect. Like when I watched his Cruiserweight Classic matches, just the innovative offense that he would have in those matches, and he even has it here. He actually was working over the hand of Travis Banks, and he did it in various ways that you really wouldn't expect. I like that he tried to win by any means necessary, which I thought was nice. I'm enjoying also heel Aiden English on commentary, which is just really weird to hear him as a heel because he's been face for so long. I enjoyed, this is easily one of my favorite Travis Banks matches because he really hasn't had a lot of matches really since the actual brand started because they just either can't make it to the ring or they just don't really showcase him all that well.
Can't make it to the ring. That's the important one right there.
I thought it made Travis Banks look good. I think it made sense for him to win because I was even thinking obviously he has to win because you have to have that NXT UK representation. I wish they did a storyline where Kendrick forced them to do it because he helped pave the way for all the wrestlers we see now because he was one of the first guys in the indie scene really to get signed and paved the way for guys like Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and such to get signed. So I really enjoyed this match though. I thought they both looked good out of it and it's just really enjoyable.
Well, my favorite thing out of Brian Kendrick is the way he wrestles is somewhere between Orange Cassidy and Randy Orton. They always say on commentary how Randy Orton never has any wasted motion. It's always, he's
He's very concise.
Yeah, and he's somewhere between that. Like, he looks like he almost doesn't care about the match, but at the same time, it's just he's not going to do anything more than he has to do, but he will do anything he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the hand thing. That was like most of this match was him working over Travis Banks' hand, because towards the beginning he catches him outside and slams it into the steps, but then catches it into the steps, into the handle, and then kicks the steps, and this is supposed to hurt his hand. I don't know how. Like, honestly, this is a little contrived, but whatever. He takes it over and slams it on the barricade, and okay, sure. And then starts working over his hand. Did you think Kendrick had any chance in this match at any point? Because we saw the sliced bread number 2, and even I called Travis Banks kicking out of that shit. And he did.
Yeah. I have no idea why they're plugging Travis Banks into this match, into four-way, but obviously they still see something in him that I'm still not seeing.
Well, they built him up on NXT over the last several weeks.
Yeah, I was about to say NXT, he was out a little bit of a hot streak, but NXT UK, he's still doing horrible.
Well, he won this match.
Yeah.
And my fear is that they're going to give him the NXT Cruiserweight Championship, and he's going to be the one bringing it over to NXT UK.
Well, if anything, it's okay, because he'll probably vacate it within about a month anyway.
Well, you said you don't.
I was thinking about he's taking the fall in the Fatal 4-Way, honestly. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, you said you don't think Angel Garza is going to drop the title this quickly, but Leo Rush did, and why can't Angel Garza be a transitional champion just to get the title over to NXT UK?
That could be a possibility to bring more, opportunity.
It's a fatal 4-way. He doesn't have to get pinned. Yeah, Travis Banks can get pinned by Jordan Devlin, hopefully.
I think it'd be cool if they did some sort of championship scramble for that kind of thing. Because that'd be a lot more lightning quick and a lot of different pinfalls and everything going on in that. We haven't seen a championship scramble in a while.
Well, my favorite part about this match was the beginning, where Travis Banks wants Brian Kendrick to lock up, but Brian Kendrick's just standing there. He's like, no, you come over here. And Banks is like, no, you come over here. And he's like, no, you come over here. And then Brian Kendrick starts like pulling on his face or something, and he gets Travis Banks to mirror him by grabbing his chin, and right after he lets go of his chin, Kendrick just punches him in the side of the face. Like, lands square on his jaw, like punches him in the side of the face, knocks his ass down, and I was laughing so hard. I'm like, that was great. I backed that up because Jerry missed it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you got to see this. And yeah, okay, that was fun. See, Kendrick beats... This is where I'm talking about him starting to beat on Banks' left hand. And then Banks kicks Brian's leg out from under him as he's running into the corner. And he goes face first into the turnbuckle and hits a double running drop kicks off of the ropes. And then a running senton into the corner onto Kendrick. I don't even think he goes for a pinfall after this. No, he goes for a suicida. And then comes back into the ring with a springboard drop kick. And then that puts Kendrick into the corner for him to spring up off that middle rope and do that double stomp to the chest. And then I think that's when he goes for a pinfall, but only gets a near fall. I'm like, that was a lot of offense for a motherfucker to kick out of. Because all of that I said was right in a row. Okay. Kendrick then dodges the slice of heaven, but then turns around and runs directly into a Kiwi Crusher. Now, he probably would have gone for a pinfall, but Brian Kendrick is smart enough to roll outside of the ring. And then Banks goes for a tope suicida again, and general rule number 4, if at first it succeeds, don't do it again. Because Brian Kendrick punches him in the face in the middle of the suicida. Let's see. And then that halts him in the ropes. So he drapes him over the ropes and then suplexes him onto the outside, drags him up to the top of the ramp to the stage, and runs back to the ring for the ref to count Travis Banks out. Banks makes it in at the 8 count. I'm glad they didn't drag it out to 9 3/4. This was a little more believable than 8 count. Immediately Kendrick locks in the captain's hook, but Banks gets out of it. Goes for the slice of heaven again. but is blocked. Kendrick like bashes his arm out of midair during a kick somehow. Anyway, that's where he hits the slice of bread number 2, or the sliced bread number 2.
Lots of slices in that.
A near fall. But then he gets up and he starts kicking Travis Banks in the face, who's bouncing back off the ropes. 3 kicks to the face, runs off the ropes, but as he's running to the ropes, Banks runs to the corner, and then Kendrick turns around right into a slice of heaven, picks him right up into a Kiwi Crusher. 1, 2, 3. Travis Banks gets the pinfall. And he's moving on. He is the 4th participant in the Fatal 4-Way for the Cruiserweight Championship at Worlds Collide this Saturday, which we will be watching live, and we will be doing a review afterwards. Be cool if we could do it live, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the main event. And here on the NXT party, we like to rate the main event using good old-fashioned NXT. So, Owen, out of 5 spots of NXT, where do you rate tonight's main event?
So I thought the main event was actually great. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 4 spots T. I'm not going to, though, rate it an extra quarter star, though, because I thought the show was really good, but it wasn't a great show. So I'm just going to leave it at 4 spots at T. I kind of really like, Kendrick's sense of urgency to try to win, the craftiness he was using, and I really enjoyed that Travis Banks really did want to take the win by a counter. He wanted to beat Kendrick fair and square, and they were really telling that story. So I'm going to give it 4 spots at T.
Jerry?
I'm going to go with 3.5. But that's because, there's a lot of implications going into the match, which is always great. There was, Brian Kendrick, who I've been a fan of for God knows how long, since he was back in Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy with Paul London and Bryan Danielson. All of them just came up together in Ring of Honor. So I've been watching Brian Kendrick for quite some time. And he also changed Joey Ryan, if you don't know that. So you want to talk about some innovative offense. But the match itself, I still think Jordan Devlin versus Ligero was better and should have been the main event. But I'm not going to try to hold that. I'm not going to hold that against it too much. So that's why I'm saying 3.5 seems fair enough.
I'm going to agree with 3.5. I feel like this was a really good match for what it was, and I do feel like I would give it 3 3/4, but I'm taking off a quarter for the fact that this was the main event instead of Jordan Devlin versus Ligero. Now, where I disagree with you guys is I'm going to give this an extra quarter spot of NXT because of a great show. Because in retrospect, this show, other than this being the main event, was pretty great. You started off the show with the new championship, the NXT UK championship, which makes sense, and they finally fucking did it. Jordan Devlin versus Ligero. Devlin moves on. It was a pretty great match. Even all the stuff with the Southwest Subculture versus Imperium is setting up for a match that hopefully is going to be really cool, that's got a mystery opponent in it. We've got, what else do we have? Fucking the Finn Balor stuff lines right up with Ilya Dragunov, who needs a little bit of momentum because Finn Balor got some momentum. It's a squash match, so it was fine. And I actually think that match made Ilya Dragunov look really good because his other squash matches were mostly just a bunch of lariats and shit. He did moves that I was like, wow. So, what else? And then that leads right into the awesome promo by Joe Coffey. I kind of feel like I'm going to give this, for the short amount of show that this was, I'm going to give this an extra half spot of NXT off the back of a really, really great show that unfortunately had this as the main event instead of the opening match. So I'm going to agree with Owen. I'm going to give this 4 spots of NXT.
Nice.
There you go.
I think that's the first time I've ever given a half spot of anything off of a really great show, let alone NXT UK.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of the NXT Party. Thank you for joining us. Please join us next week for What's NXT and the NXT Party for episode number 80 of NXT UK. And if you would like to be up here in the spot that Owen is in, let us know down in the comments how we can get a hold of you or find us on social media or any of that. We need new members of the NXT team, man.
Yeah.
Some people to review the show with us. Just watch the show. If you have Skype, we'll get you on the big screen. Meanwhile, Owen, thank you for joining us again. It's been a while.
I know, been a while, yeah. Great to be back.
Always a pleasure to have you on. Where can we find you on social media?
So you can subscribe to my 3 YouTube channels. First being Wrestling Fortune 44 for all the wrestling content. It's going to be a busy week this week of wrestling. We not only have Worlds Collide and Royal Rumble, but tonight, since this is being recorded on Friday, is NWA Hard Times. That's going to be a really enjoyable show as well. So make sure you guys watch that. We'll be uploading some wrestling rundowns that that's been pre-recorded. That sorry they've been slow, but it's been tough for James to edit them and stuff like that because he's been busy. And make sure you check out my non-wrestling YouTube channel, Owen the Talkinator, and my other YouTube channel, CM Brothers. And that's where you can find me. Cool.
Well, you can find me on Twitter. Go to nodq.com/Stefan. That's STEFAN. Or if you just want to look me up, it's at Stefan R. Osborne, OSBORNE. As always, the R stands for restricted. You can also find the gentleman on Twitter.
At Gerald_JSJ, my Facebook group Armbar, all capital ARMBAR.
Yes!
Exclamation point.
Point.
That never gets old. I love that exclamation point. I'm so glad I put that in the title. But we also have our Instagram page that Colin Andrew runs, and
that's aftermatch_wrestling. You can find me on Instagram at osborne.stefan and Jerry at
the_gentleman_slaughter.
And you can also find us on Patreon at Stefan R. Osborne if you want to contribute to the show, if you can do that. But if you really want to help the show and just have a few seconds, if you like this show, click the like button. If you like all of our shows, click the subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. And if you have any friends that might like to watch wrestling or watch us bullshit about wrestling, click the share button. Share us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever. Go ahead. We'll give you a moment.
Yep. Give it to you last night. Gonna give it to you tonight too.
Yeah.
That sounded dirty.
So you're not missing anything, Take a moment.
Seriously, go ahead and just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. You're not really missing anything. Once you come back, all I'm going to do is fucking sign out the show. When you make your home out on the range.
Support No DQ.
So I hope you enjoyed whatever it was that I decided to put in there to fill some time. Meanwhile, for the Birdman of Boston, Owen Finch, the Talkinator, for the gentleman, Jerry Slaughter, I'm the Wizard of No DQ, Stefan Osborne. Thank you for having a spot of NXT with us, and we will see you NXT time.